Hey guys, tonight we find ourselves stranded on a remote island with no food, fire or water. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Everyone, please leave a comment about any of your stories for me to know. Now take a seat, have a warm cup of tea, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. I wake to the taste of salt on my lips and the crash of waves hammering against a jagged shoreline. My eyelids flutter open and I'm blinded by a milky sunrise that paints the horizon in bruised purple and molten gold. Powdery white sand clings to every inch of my skin, a fine grit that scratches like broken glass when I move. A gust of wind whips through my damp hair, carrying the bitter tang of seaweed, and something darker decay, perhaps a shipwreck's remnant, buried just out of sight. You probably won't survive this. A cold thought flits through my mind, but I shove it away, gripping the rough fibers of my tattered shirt like a lifeline. I sit up, knees trembling. The beach stretches in both directions, untouched by footprints, except my own, and the forest looms like a wall of green menace palms, swaying in a restless rhythm. No signal, no smoke, no rescuers. My throat is raw, dry as dust, and every breath tastes of brine. I run my tongue along cracked lips and wonder if my water bottle broke or if I left it somewhere in the dark. Either way, it's gone. Crouched on the sand, I avert my gaze from the towering cliffs to my right, where jagged shadows stretch like hungry teeth. A scrap of memory surfaces the ferry, listing the panic, a final plunge into cold black waters. Then nothing until this. My pack lies half buried by a small dune. I pat it, heart-pounding anticipation and dread colliding in my chest. But when I unzip the main compartment, it's empty. No emergency rations, no bottled water, no lighter or matches. My pulse kicks up, but I force myself to breathe slowly in and out, counting to 5. The sun climbs and golden rays plunge into the canopy beyond, turning damp leaves to smoldering embers of green. Waves shimmer with a heat that feels like a million needles against bare skin. Panic claws at me, but I push down the rising tide of fear. First things first, shelter and shade. My body already aches with sunburn in places I can't see. I inch toward a cluster of driftwood logs, piled like stray bones, scavenging palm fronds to construct a lean-to. My fingers sting as I knot fronds together, improvising lashings from stripped fibers of sea-soaked rope. Each movement feels like wading through molasses. Exhaustion drips off me in rivulets. My mind flashes back to basic survival principles. Find water, create fire, procure food. None are within reach. There's no creek, no rain cloud in sight, and tinder is useless without a spark. I scan the forest edge for any sign of fresh water, a trickle, a dewdrop, even damp soil, but the undergrowth is bone dry. My tongue trails across my cheek, tasting hope and disappointment. Hunger gnaws at me, a hollow echo that quickens my pulse. Even scavenging for shellfish or coconuts feels impossible when dehydration already steals my strength. I pause, chest heaving, and lean against a weathered log, closing my eyes to conserve energy. My thoughts drift to home, the aroma of morning coffee, my mother's laughter echoing in the kitchen. I focus on that warmth, letting it steady my racing heart. A single mantra loops in my mind: keep moving, stay alive. I repeat it until the tremors in my hands subside. Shade offers only lean relief. The sun's glare bleaches everything into stark contrast. No clouds drift overhead to forgive the heat. Sweat beads along my brow and trickles down my spine, each drop disappearing into the scorching sand. I realize that every decision from this point on is life or death. Yet as fear claws at my core, a stubborn spark of resilience ignites. I push to my feet, brushing sand from my palms, and scout the shoreline. Tidal pools glint like fractured mirrors, and an idea flickers. Perhaps I can harvest dew or trap rain later, but for now I need a plan. I drag my hand through the wet sand fingers, tracing a crude SOS, hoping that someday, somehow, someone will see it. Then I crouch, listening to the rhythm of the waves, attuning to any pattern in the surf that might reveal a hidden fresh spring inland. This is only the beginning. With no food, no fire, and no water in sight, every shallow breath, every aching muscle, and every racing thought will test me in ways I've never known. I sit back on the fractured log as the sun climbs higher, its rays carving through the thin canopy and turning my throat into sandpaper. My chest heaves, each breath a tortured gasp that tastes like rust and regret. I lift my hand to my lips, dry, cracked, bleeding, and flick a flake of skin away. Thirst pounds through my skull like a merciless drumbeat. There's no creak, no trickle, no promise of relief. I'm stranded on this island with nothing but salt air and disappointment. My eyes scan the horizon, desperate for any hint of fresh water. I remember the dew hunt I fantasized about when I first spotted those shiny tide pools, how simple it seemed. Now crouched over smooth stones, littered with seaweed, I dip my fingertips into brackish water and recoil. The ocean's life-giving promise is a cruel lie here. Even the tiny crabs skittering along the rocks seem too feeble to nourish me. Hunger can wait, dehydration steals your mind before your strength, and already the edges of my vision blur. Panic flirts at the corners of my mind, but I clamp down on it with every ounce of willpower. Stay calm, I whisper to myself, voice hoarse and ragged. Think. I force my legs to stand, body trembling, and stagger toward the forest edge. Each step is an effort. My calves burn. My head spins, but I clutch at the palmed fronds of young palms, using them as crutches through the tangled undergrowth. Leaves scrape my arms raw as I push deeper into the shadowed green eyes, straining for any sign of moisture. Sunlight filters through branches in golden shafts, illuminating dust motes that dance like ghosts around me. The air here feels thicker, humid with decay, and the faint hint of mildew. But if there's moisture in the air, maybe I can capture it. I tear a length of broad leaf from a banana tree and tuck it under my arm, brushing the slick underside with my tongue. Nothing. My heart lurches every second. Without water threatens critical dehydration. My mouth feels glued shut. I squeeze the leaf, hoping droplets will bead, but the surface is bone dry. I pause by a fallen log, leaning heavily against its jagged bark. My breathing is shallow. Even talking feels impossible. Panic claws at my ribcage. Remember that first night, I mutter, recalling my makeshift lean-to spiked with palm fronds. No shelter will help if I pass out before rescue arrives. I shove my palms into the cool shade beneath the log scraping soil into my cupped hands. There's a faint dampness deep in the earth, just enough to taste if I press my lips to the black granules. I press and lick each grain, gritty and bitter, but alive with the faintest promise. It isn't much, but when I swallow, a spark of relief flickers through my body like a fleeting ember. Encouraged, I drop to my knees and press my cheek against the loamy ground, inhaling the scent of roots and rot. I scoop a handful of dirt onto a broad leaf and bring it to my lips again, working the soil between my tongue and roof of my mouth. My stomach lurches against the unfamiliar texture, but I ignore the nausea. With each swallow of gritty earth, I feel a drop of dampness slide down my parched throat. It's far from pure, but it's life. After several minutes, I sit back and wipe the mud from my chin. My hands shake uncontrollably, and I close my eyes, letting the damp earth's coolness seep into my bones. The world softens at the edges, and for a moment I drift, recalling the taste of clean water from a mountain spring back home. I almost smile, but the ache in my lungs snaps me back. I have to move. I follow the forest floor downhill, where gravity might guide water toward the shore. Twisted vines clutch at my ankles as I stumble through broken roots. Branches overhead rustle with unseen creatures, but I don't spare them a thought. I focus on the ground beneath me, scanning for depressions or mossy hollows where rainwater might collect. A small gully of smooth stones, maybe last night's storm, left pockets of runoff here. I crouch and peer into the tunnels formed by twisting roots. Shadows hide any droplets, but I cup my hand and let damp soil run through my fingers. Suddenly, a faint trickle reaches my ears, so faint I nearly dismiss it as wind through leaves. I freeze. Listening again, it's unmistakable water somewhere ahead. Adrenaline surges, chasing away the last hazy edges of weakness. I scramble forward, brushing aside ferns and tangled roots until I slip and land on damp earth. My palms sink into a puddle no larger than my fist, but it ripples with life. I press my lips to the shallow pool and drink, gulping, until the world swims. The water is muddy, tinged with earth, but it's water. Relief floods through me, and tears sting my eyes as I drink, until the puddle vanishes beneath my trembling fingers. My throat no longer screams with thirst, but I know this relief is temporary. I'll have to return to this spot, but first I need to fortify my shelter and signal. I refill the hollowed log I carried leaf shovel fashioned yesterday, pouring the muddy water into it. It's crude, but it gives me a container for half a day. I push myself to my feet, legs trembling, and start the slow trudge back through the undergrowth. Sunlight bursts through a clearing, and I shield my eyes, remembering the blinding glare of midday. Each step is agony, but every drop in my pack feels like a small triumph. Emerging onto the beach, sand explodes under my boots. I stagger toward my lean-to, heart pounding so fiercely I hear it in my ears. I prop the log upright against a crossbeam and kneel to drink more water from it, savoring each swallow as though it were nectar from the gods. My head clears and a cautious hope flickers. I may have found only a trickle, but it could buy me time to search for a cleaner source or collect rain when the clouds decide to appear. As I sit back against my shelter, I glance at the stone SOS I carved into the sand. The tide may swallow it, but I'll refresh the message daily. Every time I return here, I'll see it as a beacon of my own resilience. My lips curve into a tired smile. Survival isn't about comfort, it's about seizing every small victory. And this puddle of mud water searing with grit is my victory today. Shadows stretch long as the sun dips, and I tuck the log into the shade of my shelter, securing it with palm fiber lashings. Night will bring cold, but at least I've conquered thirst for now. I close my eyes and murmur my mantra, keep moving, stay alive. The sun climbs to its zenith, a merciless orb that sears the sky and sears me through every thread of clothing. My makeshift lean-to offers little relief. Its palm frond roof is too thin and stray rays pierce the gaps like molten needles. Sweat courses down my temples, stinging salt into my eyes. My shirt, once tattered but functional, now clings to my back in damp patches that feel as heavy as lead. I rise unsteadily, every movement an ache in muscle and joint. The sand beneath my boots smolders, and each step toward the forest edge feels like walking on hot plates. The heat is a predator stalking me, its breath a furnace that warps the air. My throat dries in an instant. Even the small reserve of muddy water I scavenged tastes like ashes now. I lift my bottle log to my lips and take a sip, hoping for more moisture than it provides. The meager trickle barely wets my tongue, but I swallow gratefully and let the coolness spread down my throat in faint comfort. Shade becomes my singular obsession. I scan the tree line where shadows cluster like an oasis. Munched through leaves dangle overhead, forming a tapestry of dark green against the blinding glare. I imagine the moment I slip into that refuge, immediate release from the sun's vice-crisp air that whispers freedom. I stagger forward, limbs trembling. My vision swims at the edges, each oscillation of heat wavy and surreal. I stumble over a root and catch myself on a knotted vine, heart hammering. My palm stings where the bark sliced skin, but I don't feel it. Pain is a luxury the sun has stolen. I focus on breathing 1, 2, 3 to keep panic at bay. Finally, I cross the threshold where shade thickens into a living cathedral of trunks and fronds. The temperature drops instantly, coolness that feels like salvation. I sink to my knees, pressing my forehead to the mossy earth. The scent of wood and damp fern fills my nostrils, sharp and sweet. I linger in that spot, letting the contrast wash through my system. But I can't stay here forever. The day continues its arc, and darkness will return with brutal cold. I rise again, glancing up at the dense canopy. If I can widen my shelter footprint, I might carve out a deeper pocket of shade, maybe even trap moisture when night dew falls. I spend the next hour gathering fallen branches and broad leaves, stacking them into a thicker roof. My body protests, every fiber screaming fatigue, but adrenaline keeps me moving. Sweat mats hair to my neck. My shirt feels suffocating, so I strip it off and tie it around my waist, using the sleeves to collect dripping condensation from large banana leaves. Each swing of gathered water is feeble, but drops accumulate until I pour them into my container. It's a trickle, but after earlier victories, even a trickle feels like a river. Mid-task, I pause and look up. Motions of light and shadow play across the makeshift shelter as fronds flutter in a gentle breeze. Sunbeams scatter like golden shards, and for a moment I imagine rain falling through those leaves, drumming on my roof with life-giving rhythm. I breathe in, closing my eyes against dizziness, and cling to that image. A memory surfaces: camping trips with friends under pines, how we'd swim in mountain streams and roast marshmallows by a crackling fire. "You probably won't survive this," my inner skeptic had whispered on the beach. But here, in the half-light of this improvised refuge, I challenge that voice. I drape my makeshift canopy, heavier pressing green fronds into the soil to anchor them against wind. As I work, my shadow stretches long and thin across the leaf-littered floor. It flickers monstrously, reminding me that day 3 looms ahead, and with it potential rescue or deeper ordeal. My mind flicks back to the SOS chalked in sand. The tide will wash it away soon. I need a more permanent signal. A rock cairn, stacked stones in a high clearing, would stand even under rising water. But before that, I must secure rest. Heat exhaustion is real nausea, headaches, delirium. I settle beneath my reinforced lean-to, pressing my pack like a pillow against a root. My skin tingles where sun burned through my shirt, raw and sensitive. I dab at the worst spots with cool earth, using what little mud I can spare. Every scratch and abrasion is an open invitation to infection, but I have no choice. I close my eyes and let the forest hush envelop me. Birds call distantly, and the rustle of lizards skittering through underbrush plays like a symphony of small life. For a fleeting moment, I feel less alone, as if I'm part of this wilderness instead of its prisoner. My breath slows. Suddenly, a sharp pain zings through my thigh, an ant or spider bite, perhaps. I slap at the spot, swelling already forming. Fear darts through me, but I force it down. Insect bites are minor compared to thirst or hunger. I trace a makeshift salve by crushing nearby sage-like leaves and rubbing the paste onto the bite. The herbal aroma is faint but soothing. It anchors me back to strategy, not panic. Time passes in waves of light and dark as the sun shifts. My stomach grumbles, but food is secondary to shade and water. I press my hands into the soft earth, tasting the cool dampness again, no longer mud, but potential for life. If I can channel rainwater into a gutter of leaves, I could collect enough to survive another night. I scan the canopy for any slope in fronds that could funnel water, then arrange a broad leaf beneath a cluster of overlapping palm shoots. It's crude, but ingenuity thrives in desperation. By late afternoon, the sun tilts westward, and beams sneak through the eastern canopy, casting spindly patterns on the forest floor. My shelter offers solid cover now, though every gust threatens to dislodge it. I reinforce posts with heavy rocks, dragged from the shoreline, bracing against collapse. Exhaustion weighs like a stone in my chest, but I refuse to lie down until I test my dew trap. I pour the few tablespoons of muddy water from my log into a leaf cup and clean it against a rock, knowing that the next sip must be pure. I climb to the top of a fallen tree trunk and scan the sky. No clouds, no promise of rain. I exhale, frustration radiating through my ribs, and focus on the one advantage these islands hold. Nights are humid and dew is inevitable. I position my leaf cup where it will catch drip drops as darkness falls. Then, with shaking legs, I retreat into my lean-to and lie on a bed of leaves. I wrap my wraparound shirt over my shoulders to preserve body heat once the sun finally sets. My eyelids flutter shut as the forest's chorus begins: crickets, cicadas, distant bird calls lulling me toward sleep. Even here, fatigue doesn't guarantee rest. My heart pounds with every minor sound, a branch snapping, a rustle in the leaves. But I repeat my mantra: keep moving, stay alive, and as shadows deepen, my mind floats between consciousness and dreams. In that half-sleep, I imagine the sun breaking again tomorrow, wavering on the horizon, a new trial, a new chance. My body trembles as dawn's light filters through the fronds, and I realize I can't survive on this beach, scrape and scrape shelter forever. Today, I dedicate every ounce of strength to building a refuge that can withstand sun rain and predators. I push myself upright, muscles screaming, and survey the island's edge, where deadfall and debris gather like forgotten relics. I start by scavenging the shoreline for driftwood. Each log I haul feels twice its weight. Sand clings in gritty layers, making every step a battle. I stack the largest pieces against 2 sturdy palm trunks, forming a crude A-frame skeleton. My hands blister where rough bark rubs raw. I press fronds from younger palms into wounds to staunch the bleeding grimacing through the sting. Each frond is carefully interwoven, layering thick thatch over the driftwood frame until the roof resembles a slanted ridge, a promise of shade and shelter. Next, I forage inland for stronger support. Branches from fallen hardwood trees lie scattered across the forest floor. I select straight forked limbs to serve as upright posts. Using a jagged stone I sharpened yesterday, I carve notches at the ends so that the horizontal crossbeams will fit snugly. Sweat drips into my eyes as I drive each post into the sand-clay soil, wedging them until they stand firm. I lash the poles together with the lengths of vine stripped and twisted until they hold like braided rope. Shelter isn't just about cover, it's about security. I search for loose stones to reinforce the base-gathering, river-smoothed rocks and piling them against the posts. The weight keeps the frame from shifting if wind gusts sweep across the clearing. My legs ache so badly that I pause to cradle my thigh, pressing a cool leaf to soothe the soreness. Each breath lingers heavy, but I force myself on. There's no time for self-pity. Under the shade of my half-built hut, I take stock of what remains: a pile of fronds, a bundle of vines, and my makeshift blade. Hunger growls softly in my belly, but food is a secondary concern. Without shelter, I won't last the next heatwave. I tuck into the deeper forest for damp fronds and broad leaves to craft walls. The underbrush resists thorns, snag at my arms, and lizards dart away at my approach, but I persist, dragging the green shields back to my sight. By midday, the skeleton stands tall. I drape layers of fronds over the roof, then bend and tie long leaves down the sides, creating walls that sway but block wind and sun. I reinforce corners with extra rope and wedge small sticks diagonally to brace the walls against collapse. Shadows gather beneath the canopy like silent guardians. I step back to admire my work, a dome of green that blends into the forest, offering sanctuary as well as camouflage. I venture inside, sliding through the low entrance. The air is noticeably cooler, the ground soft with leaf litter instead of scorching sand. I arrange a nest of dried palm fibers in one corner for rest and use a broad leaf as a makeshift bowl for rainwater if the sky decides to weep. My limbs collapse and I sink onto my improvised bedding, letting the cool earth cradle my back. Relief floods through me, but I know even the sturdiest shelter can crumble without proper drainage. Turning my attention skyward, I examine the canopy above the roof. Fronds overlap at odd angles, leaving gaps where rain will slip through. I climb onto a low branch, balancing like a tightrope walker, and weave extra leaves into the weave, plugging holes one by one. My heart pounds at every creak, but I keep focused, knowing that a failed roof means a flooded floor tomorrow. When I finally slide down dizzy with vertigo, I hug the shelter's frame, grateful for this victory. With the structure complete, I carve steps into the soft ground leading to the entrance, straightening the threshold so water runs off instead of pooling. I drag a long stick across the dirt to form a shallow trench around the base, channeling potential rain runoff away from my walls. The labor exhausts me, but crafting these defenses transforms the shelter from flimsy lean-to to a fortress, at least modestly so. Late afternoon finds me collecting fallen banana stalks to create blinds around the entrance. These blinds will block midday light and offer privacy, but can be tied back when I need to signal overhead. I test their maneuverability by peeking out. The ocean stretches beyond brilliant blue, but no sail, no rescue. Still, the act of engineering blinds, simple mechanical movement, anchors my mind to purpose, not panic. As the sun dips lower, I forage for materials to raise my SOS signal. I haul slender poles from the forest's edge and bind them into a tripod atop a rocky outcrop overlooking the beach. From my pack of vines, I tie a tattered strip of cloth I tore from my shirt, letting it snap in the breeze like a flag. It's precarious, but visible from afar. If a plane or boat passes, this fluttering rag could catch their eye. My shelter and signal both stand now testaments to creativity under pressure. I sit on a flat driftwood bench I fashioned by wedging two logs, legs folded beneath me, and survey the twin achievements. Sweat and grime coat me, but pride and adrenaline pulse stronger. I cup my vessel of muddy water and sip. Cool drips slide past cracked lips, and I let the moisture sink deep. Night approaches, and I tiptoe inside my shelter, pressing the banana leaf blinds closed. The world outside grows quieter, punctuated by distant waves. I lie back on my bedding, heart thumping in my ears, and let my thoughts wander the hellish heat of midday, the sting of each rope, lash the frustration and triumph of every woven frond. I whisper my mantra once more: keep moving, stay alive, and feel the words solidify into resolve. My shelter may be rudimentary, but it's mine. It carries the scars of sweat and blood, yet it stands firm. Tomorrow I'll fortify my signal hunt for food and gather better water. For now I close my eyes, limbs heavy but spirit alight. In this green haven I find a fleeting peace amid the suffocating urgency of survival. My stomach churns with a hollow ache that feels deeper than bone, a relentless reminder of my failure to find solid sustenance. Dawn's light seeps through the slats of my banana leaf blinds, and I awaken to an emptiness that roils my insides. The shelter I built stands firm, and my signal rag snaps in the breeze atop the rocky tripod, but all the structure and strategy in the world can't fill the pit in my belly. I push myself upright, dislodging grains of sand from my bedding. My legs tremble as if made of brittle twigs, but I force them to carry me outside. The forest floor stretches in mottled shade, the same ferns, the same gnarled roots, and yet today it feels alien, inhospitable. Hunger gnaws at me, twin wolves pacing this island prison. I clutch the notch-carved walking stick I fashioned, leaning heavily on it as I move toward the shoreline. Every step is a test of will. My mind drifts to memories of breakfast back home. Avocado toast dripping with olive oil, the crackle of bacon, the comfort of a warm mug in my hands. I shake my head, desperate to banish visions that only intensify my craving. At the water's edge, the tide pools glisten like jewels, emerald green algae clinging to stones, starfish splayed in unnatural stillness. My mouth waters, even though I know slogging through raw sea creatures without fire is a gamble with food poisoning. I crouch beside a tide pool and peer into its depths. Tiny crabs scuttle inside their shells, glinting in the morning sun. My hand hovers, trembling. I imagine scooping them up shells, yielding beneath my fingers, and popping the slippery meat into my mouth. But logic intervenes. I have no salt to purge toxins, no fire to cook them. I can't risk hours of agony or worse. My vision blurs at the edges as hunger's hallucination creeps in. I blink, and there, perched on a sun-bleached driftwood log, is a cluster of golden mangoes, perfectly ripe, their skins glowing like lanterns. A breeze lifts their fragrance, sweet, heavy, intoxicating. My pulse surges. I lift a tentative hand, palm sweating, and reach out to pluck a mango. I pinch at its tender flesh, expecting the give of ripeness. But when my fingers touch the surface, the fruit dissolves like mist, and I'm met only by sun-warmed wood. The scent vanishes. My heart lurches, and the ocean beside me seems to recede slightly, the line between reality and delirium, shimmering like a heat mirage. I stagger back, grasping my head. My shirt sticks to my chest, damp with sweat. I inhale sharply, focusing on the feel of salt spray on my skin and the rasp of sand beneath my boots. I close my eyes and count my breaths, 1, 2, 3, until the mango vision fades. I force myself to stand upright and brush sand from my hands. The tide pool before me is empty now. No fruit, no crabs, just brine and rock. A wave slaps against the stones in a steady pulse, as if mocking my futile hunger. I turn away and trudge down the beach, scanning for anything real to sustain me. Coconuts, shellfish, seabirds. Each sight, each shadow taunts me now with false promise. I pause at a line of palm trees and fixate on a swaying frond above. It carries a small cluster of coconuts. My heart leaps. I lunge forward, scrambling over sand and driftwood, breath ragged. I grab the frond's base and pull, expecting the fruit to tumble free. Instead, it's empty, just a stub of broken palm splintered at my touch. My knee slams into a hidden rock and I collapse, gasping. Tears sting my eyes, part frustration, part fatigue. The hallucinations won't stop. They twist reality into cruel parodies of hope. I clench my fists and force myself to rise, wiping mist from my lashes. I retreat to the shelter, mind racing. My empty stomach gurgles a savage tune. You need protein, I mutter, scanning the forest floor for nuts or edible roots. The undergrowth is thick, but my previous forays yielded nothing but dry twigs and poisonous berries. I remember the warning labels from survival manuals. Blackberries can be a hope, but nightshade lurks in shaded patches. My knowledge is muddled by fatigue. I kneel beside a patch of wild herbs that smell faintly minty. I pinch a leaf between my fingers and rub it between my palms. It releases a sharp aroma. I lift the fragment to my lips and sniff. Nothing burns, nothing makes me woozy. Could it be an edible mint? I taste a sliver. Cool relief floods my mouth. It's bitter but fresh. A seed of hope. I forage more leaves, stuffing them into my shirt pocket, planning to brew a makeshift tea in my mind, though I have no fire. I crouch beside a fallen log and chew handfuls of leaves, slowly letting saliva coat them into a swallowable paste. It's not food, but it calms my throat and distracts the churning pit inside. I close my eyes, envisioning a warm broth in a wooden cup, steam curling upward. My body quakes with longing, but I chew on each bite, a small defiance against hunger's roar. Moments stretch. My vision swims as my blood sugar bottoms out. The forest around me darkens at the edges. I grip the log's rough bark and press my forehead against it, tasting faint earthiness. My heartbeat slows to a hollow drum, and I drift on the thin line between wakefulness and hallucination. I almost welcome it, the mind's escape hatch, until I hear the crack of a twig. Panic jolts me upright. I blink and focus on a small lizard skittering across a leaf. It's real. A spark of survival instinct flares protein. I inch closer, careful not to scare it off. My hands shake violently, but I steady them on my stick. In one swift motion, born of desperation, I snatch the lizard, its tail whipping free and twitching on the ground. I grip the head end and snap its spine. Immediate regret and relief flood me together. I kneel beside it and pause, fingers hovering over its tiny form. Eating it raw is risky, but I have no fire. Hunger outweighs fear. I clamp down on the neck, tearing flesh with my front teeth. The taste is gamey and slick, an assault on my senses, but each chew provides nourishment my body craves. I swallow fragments, grit and all, until nothing remains but a twitching tail I crush beneath my boot. Warmth spreads through me, not just from calories, but from triumph. My head clears, the world sharpens. I sit back, stomach muted, and exhale a ragged breath. The forest sounds return, birdsong, breeze, distant waves. My hallucinations recede like a bad dream, leaving reality bare but manageable. I gather more minty leaves and press them to my temple to soothe the rage of hunger and the sting of lizard juice. My hands shake less, now vitality pulses through my veins again. It's not a feast, but it is life. I vow to remember this moment, the lengths I'll go to survive. I rise unsteadily, grip the walking stick and survey the island anew. Hunger still lurks, but I've conquered its worst edges. Each day will bring fresh trials, but now I know that when my mind betrays me with fantasies of fruit, my body can retaliate with action. I tuck the mint leaves back into my pocket and head toward the high bluff where I plan to build my stone cairn signal. The morning light filters through my blinds like pale fingers drawing me awake, and a single thought screams through my skull: I need more than leaves and mud to survive. My stomach twists a living knot that no amount of mint can soothe. Yesterday's raw lizard barely scratched the surface. Now hunger feels like claws raking my insides. Without fire or tools, scavenging for shellfish and sea creatures carries the double-edged promise of calories and doom. Yet I have no choice. I must risk raw catch. I push myself out of the shelter limbs, stiff with yesterday's labor. My feet sink into sand that's still cool from night's dew. Beyond the tide line, low pools glint like black glass filled with creatures born between water and rock. I tighten my grip on my sharpened stick, my only tool. It feels feeble in my hand, but it's enough. I wade chest deep into the largest pool, the chill water slicing through my skin. My heart hammers as I crouch beneath a shelf of barnacle-crusted stone. Tiny oysters cling to every surface, their shells rough and sharp. I brace one foot against a rock and scrape underneath with the stick. A cluster pops free, quivering in the shallow current. I bring it to the surface, heart pounding with equal parts triumph and dread. Holding the oyster between thumb and forefinger, I inspect it for cracks or discoloration. If I misjudge, I risk paralytic shellfish, poisoning and agonizing death of spasms and delirium. My pulse reverberates in my temples. I swallow hard, taste salt and fear. I grip the oyster shell between my teeth and twist, prying it open against the jagged edge of the rock. A thin brine spills into the tide pool, and I shiver as I lift the glistening flesh to my lips. The texture is slippery and viscous, a cold shock that floods my senses. I clamp my teeth down, chew deliberately, and let the briny juice wash over my tongue. A ribbon of seaweed slides down my throat in the same mouthful. I exhale a shaky breath and swallow. No cramps, no metallic taste of decay. My head clears and relief coils through my chest like warm cords. For now, at least, I have food. I forage deeper into the pool, gathering more oysters, mussels, and small periwinkles. Each catch tests me a twist too hard, and I cut my lip. A shell too old, and the meat tastes foul. But as I collect a small bounty enough for 2 meals, I feel a spark of confidence. My hands tremble less. My breath steadies. Hunger's grip loosens its vice. Back on the beach, I spread the shellfish on a flat rock, warmed by the sun, hoping ultraviolet rays will kill some bacteria. It's not cooking, but it's something. I close my eyes against the glare and use my shirt sleeve to rub grit and barnacle fragments from the shells, then crack them open with the base of my sharpened stick knife. A thin layer of sand and grit falls away, leaving the pale meat exposed. I swallow a shellful and grit bites my gums, but I force myself to chew. It's a compromised, gritty nutrition tinted with risk. Each swallow is a wager, nourish or poison. My stomach churns, but I push through, determined not to let fear starve me. When the small pile is gone, I feel fuller than I have in days. A dull ache remains in my belly, but it's a bearer of strength now. I sit back on my heels, letting the sun bake my shoulders and survey the small feast of shells scattered at my feet. The tide pools reflect the sky in sparkling mosaics. For a moment, I allow myself a quiet pride. I've turned this island's bounty into life. But survival demands more than a single meal. If poison courses through my veins, I'll have no second chance. I need a broader strategy, diversify my catch, spread risk. I consider the limpets clinging to shaded rocks, their conical shells like pointed hats. They're small, plentiful, and less likely to harbor toxins. I stand and scan the shoreline for the next cluster. Under a rocky overhang, I spot a line of limpets, each the size of a coin, adhering to vertical stone. I crouch low, core muscles burning, and slide my stick beneath one. The suction pops it free with a sound like a tiny cork. I drop it into a leaf cup. One by one, I harvest dozens each, a promise of protein. My hands are slick with seawater and slime. Every movement feels exaggerated, an actor in slow motion, yet I persist. The horizon beyond shimmers heat waves, but the ocean calm is an ally now. I gather a heaping handful of limpets, grateful for their simplicity, less flavor, but less danger. Carrying my haul back to the shelter, I pause to rinse the shellfish in seawater. Then, with methodical care, I pry each shell open against the edge of a rock, extracting the pale flesh. It tastes briny, a chewy reminder that life thrives in every ocean crevice. I chew, deliberately salivating as the salt mingles with faint sweetness. Each bite builds strength. As I eat, I reflect on the risk I took with raw shellfish. The oyster that qualified at the rock base was fresh. But what if I'm wrong? Next time, paralysis could set in within hours. My throat could spasm and I'd drown in my own fluids. I shudder at the thought, but resolve hardens. I will continue to test and learn this island's edible catalog, but always in small doses. After the meal, I return to the tide pools and note their tidal rhythms. Some pools refill at high tide, others evaporate at low. Tomorrow, I plan to return at dawn to catch creatures before the sun bakes them too hard to pry free. I mark the best spots in my mind, the cluster beneath the slab rock, the pocket near the seaweed fringe, the shallow bowl that holds tiny fish in the receding water. With the meager feast inside me, energy returns. My legs feel firmer, each movement more deliberate. I drag a line in the sand, marking the high tide point. Knowing that this line is both boundary and opportunity. Above it, coconuts might fall. Below, shellfish wait. I sit at the water's edge, stick in hand, and watch gulls wheel overhead. Their keen eyes pick carcasses and scraps that I cannot. Survival is a game of adaptation, outsmarting nature's predators and working with the elements. The gulls are competitors, but they also reveal new spots where they fish, dive, and drop prey. I study their behavior, noting patterns. A bird that dives then ascends repeatedly likely spies a hidden pool of fish. As afternoon heat softens, I pack the remainder of my catch back into the leaf cup and wedge it beside my sleeping nest for safekeeping. It's delicate, but hidden beneath palm fronds, it should stay cool until I'm ready for another round. Evening brings a hush across the island. The tide pools glisten like ink blots under a violet sky. I sit before my shelter and sip the last drops of my muddy water, imagining the nutrients from shellfish mingling with that grit, a cocktail of endurance. The risk of poisoning lingers, but I choose action over inaction. In the wilderness, hesitance is a death sentence. Night falls and the island exhales. Crickets chirp in unison and distant waves lap the shore in a steady heartbeat. My stomach is not full, but it's no longer screaming. I repeat my mantra, keep moving, stay alive, and as I lie down beneath my woven roof, the memory of raw oyster and limpets swirls with the scent of salt air, a reminder that every small victory in survival carries a touch of danger, and I must embrace both to endure. Night descends like a silken blade, slicing the last vestiges of daylight from the sky. The forest hushes, and the ocean's roar becomes a distant lullaby. Without fire, the temperature plummets swiftly. I press myself against the back wall of my shelter, banana leaf blinds pulled tight against the entrance, and pull my damp shirt around my shoulders. The fibers cling to my skin, chilling like ice. My body shivers involuntarily. Every muscle tightens, as if trying to bury heat into my bones. I hug my knees, seeking to minimize exposed surface area, and tuck my chin to my chest. The floor beneath me, layers of leaves and palm fibers, offers scant insulation against the cold earth. I try to recall the wind-blocking techniques from survival guides, but without thick layers or fur, I'm at the mercy of the night. I close my eyes and focus on my breath, wanting to summon warmth from within. Inhale, chest expands. Exhale, contraction. I repeat this until the trembling slows to manageable quivers. My teeth chatter, and I press my pack against my belly, hoping the remnant body heat will transfer. The pack's canvas is rough, but it absorbs what little warmth my core can spare. Outside, the wind threads through the forest, stirring fronds and sending hollow echoes through my shelter. Each gust feels like a physical blow, carrying salty mist that seeps in through tiny gaps. I press my palms against the walls, searching for leaks. When I find a slit where moonlight glints through, I press a handful of damp leaves into the crack, sealing it as best I can. The relief is immediate. Drafts subside, and the air inside grows slightly less frigid. Still cold creeps up my spine. I wrap my arms across my chest and rock my body gently, mimicking the motion of waves on the water. The rhythmic sway distracts my mind from the burning of cold against skin. I imagine standing under a waterfall back home, let the spray envelope me in warmth. I hold that image until my body relaxes enough that I slip into half sleep. Dreams come in shards, flickers of sunlight, the feel of hot stones beneath bare feet, the laughter of friends around a campfire. Then a sudden flash of ice darkness and teeth clattering in my skull jerks me awake. I gasp and my lungs fill with cool, damp air that stings like pins. My heartbeat hammers as if startled awake from a fall. I force myself to stay conscious. Hypothermia lurks at the edges of my awareness. Numbness in my fingers whispers seduction. I clamp down on the urge to lie still. Instead, I gently massage my arms and legs, kneading muscles to spur blood flow. My teeth continue to chatter, but I press my lips together, trying to control the tremor. I hum a low tune, a childhood lullaby, its vibrations trembling through my bones, stirring warmth. I rummage beside me for my walking stick and use it to brace myself in a seated twist, stretching one leg then the other. The motions are small, but each counts. My fingers numb quickly, but I grit my teeth and push until the ache yields to dull fatigue. Body heat returns bit by bit, carrying an edge of pain, but fighting the cold's advance. In the deep dark, I hear the distant cry of a nightbird, an owl or something else, its lonely call echoing across the sand and trees. The sound both unnerves and comforts me. It reminds me I'm not alone in this primeval world. Somewhere beyond other creatures endure this night too, and somehow I find solidarity in shared struggle. Hours pass in cycles of movement and stillness, pulse-raising stretches, followed by desperate clutching at my pack. The moon arcs overhead, illuminating the floor in ghostly silver. Shadows flicker across the walls as fronds sway overhead. I press my forehead against the cool canvas, willing dawn to hurry its step. My mind wanders to water's warming potential, a hot drink that could soothe my muscles, relax me into deeper slumber. But without fire, the idea is cruel fantasy. I clamp down on regret, focusing instead on survival tactics. My shelter, though primitive, has held its shape. The leaf walls whisper but do not collapse. I retie a frond tie that's loosened using a length of vine I saved. Every repaired knot is a bulwark against cold. I rub my palms together vigorously, then cup them around my elbows, generating heat through friction. It's painful raw skin against raw skin, but pain is preferable to numbness. I hum again, louder this time, letting vibration travel through my entire body. The tune shifts, a song of resilience, each lyric affirming purpose. You will not give in, you will not freeze. The cold and I engage in a silent duel. It tries to freeze my limbs, slow my thoughts. I counter with motion, warmth, and mantra. At one point, I feel dizziness creep in, hypothermia's whisper, and I slam my feet to the ground, repeatedly stamping an imaginary dance to hasten blood flow. My breath comes in foggy puffs that mingle with the moonlight. At last, I notice my teeth have stopped chattering. The ache in my muscles remains, but it's steady, familiar evidence of life. I lie back on my leaf mattress, limbs relaxed enough to settle, but my eyes refuse to close fully. I know the moment I slip into deep sleep without enough warmth, my body could slip further into danger. So I surrender to a shallow rest, an edge of awareness kept alive by resolve. In that delicate balance between consciousness and dreams, I envision the first rays of dawn, gilding the horizon in pinks and gold. I imagine sunlight streaming through the blinds, warming the shelter like a gentle hearth. I cling to that vision, letting it be the ember that keeps my inner furnace burning. Time loses meaning in the night's abyss. My throat itches with dryness, but my water container is empty. I remind myself tomorrow, first task is fetch water at dawn when dew glistens. For now, survival is measured in breath warmth and faith that the world still spins its sun my way. I murmur my mantra one last time before drifting. Keep moving, stay alive. Daylight seeps through the banana leaf blinds in pale, trembling beams that slant across my bedding. I wake with the heavy press of fatigue in every fiber of my body, damp, sore, and half numb from the night's cold. Yet as I push myself up, the sight of the sun cresting the horizon steels my resolve. Today, I will refuse to surrender. I sit at the shelter's entrance and breathe in the brisk morning air, tasting dew on my tongue. Each inhale brings a measure of hope. Each exhale expels the chill of despair. I whisper my mantra once, then again. Keep moving. Stay alive until the words embed themselves in my marrow. The island is quiet, except for the thrum of waves and distant birdsong, a reminder that life persists even in adversity. My first task is water. Last night's muddy puddles sustained me, but I still thirst for something closer to purity. At dawn, dew collects on broad leaves in crystalline beads. I slip out barefoot, careful not to alert any hidden creatures, and scan the leafy understory. Gone is the haze of starvation-induced hallucination. Now my vision is sharp, every droplet glimmering like a promise. I bend beneath a banana fan and press the curved leaf to my lips, shaking it gently. Tiny pearls of moisture roll into the hollow, pooling into a small reservoir. I cup my hands and scoop the water up, letting it wash the grit from my mouth and throat. The freshness electrifies me. Cool ribbons that soothe raw surfaces and ignite the dull ache of exhaustion into a quiet fire of determination. Refreshed, I drift toward the tide pools where yesterday's shellfish hunt taught me valuable lessons. Today I intend to expand my repertoire. I glance at the high tide line marked in sand and crouch above the rocky ledge where small fish hide in shallow bowls. Using my sharpened stick, I prod at a cluster of tiny silver minnows, startling them into darting toward deeper water. Quickly, I trap a few against the rock's edge, with both hands feeling the slippery life thrash beneath my grasp. I examine each fish for vitality, Bright eyes, firm flesh, and then bite down hard, severing spine and muscle. The first mouthful is cold and sinewy, but it's nourishment. My muscles surge with small triumphs as I swallow each gulp, eclipsing the sickness of hunger with the clarity of survival. I pause to let the sun's warmth infiltrate my bones, then scout for more. A low tide exposes pockets of sea cucumber and brittle starfish nestled in crevices. I avoid the ones with toxic patterns. My shellfish gambit taught me caution, and harvest only the plainer specimens. My hands work quickly, scraping, prying, de-sheathing. It's a gruesome ballet, but necessity is the only conductor. I store my catch in the leaf cup, knowing that eating too much raw seafood can backfire, but moderation is my ally. With protein secured, I shift focus to signaling. The rag atop my tripod flagpole flutters, but a lone cloth strip is easy to miss. I decide to build a more permanent cairn. Striding up the rocky bluff, I dig stones from sandy soil and haul them into a growing pile. Each rock clinks against the next, a Morse code of resilience. As I stack them into a spiral tower, I sink deeper into concentration, hands slick with sweat and salt. Halfway through, I pause to wipe my brow and look back. The forest canopy smolders in emerald heat, the beach stretches desolate, and beyond the vast expanse of ocean shimmers in morning light. The cairn grows beneath my fingers, a silent SOS that will endure storms and tides. I weave a few pieces of driftwood into its heart to catch the wind's attention, hoping that aerial searchers might glimpse its odd shape against the earth. At the summit, I place the final stone and stand beside my creation. The spiraling form rises nearly waist-high, and I spin it slowly, marveling at the geometry of desperation turned into purpose. I imagine explorers or rescue planes scouting this coastline and their eyes catching the unusual mound. My heart thumps with anticipation, and that surge of adrenaline is like a second wind. Descending the bluff, I map the cairn's location in my mind against recognizable landmarks: a lone twisted palm, a jagged rock outcrop, the angle of the surf. Good navigators rely on reference points. I'll need to return here daily to refresh the pile and scan the horizon. Back at the shelter, I feel the ache of building, but also a glow of accomplishment. I kneel before the door and tie the banana leaf blinds back, creating a clear view of the beach. Sunlight spills inside in broad strokes, warming the leaf mattress. I unpack my leaf cup of fish and sea creatures and eat methodically, each bite a lesson in portion control and gratitude. My muscles flex with renewed strength. My mind hums with clarity. Food and water secured, shelter solid, and signal in place. I turn to restocking my resources. I sweep the sand at the shelter's edge for fallen coconuts, haying to ward off hunger tomorrow. I crack two open against a rock and drink the milky liquid rich with electrolytes and chew the soft meat. It's a luxury, a taste of tropical abundance I nearly forgot existed. My shirt sleeves, stained with mud and salt, almost feel ceremonial. Now proof I've worked, suffered, survived. I wrap the fabric around my head as a sweatband, repurposing it to keep moisture from blinding my eyes. Plans form in my mind. Tomorrow, I'll explore deeper into the forest for fruit trees or fresh springs. I'll also rig a rainwater catch system from the sturdier palm leaves above the shelter. As the sun climbs to its apex, I sit before my hut, back against the cool wall, and close my eyes. The heat on my skin is fierce but bearable. I let the stillness sink in, feeling the island pulse around me. Birds darting in flashes of color, distant gull cries, and the endless roar of waves. I whisper my mantra softly one last time. Keep moving, stay alive, knowing that each affirmation binds me tighter to this world. Today is not just about survival, it's about thriving within constraints. I have agency here. Each decision shapes the hours, and hours shapes the days. And as long as I breathe, I remain the author of my fate. Dawn's pale light seeps through the canopy, and my body aches with the weight of yesterday's victories and defeats. I wake with a single burning need: water. My muddy stash dwindles to nothing, and without fresh dew, dehydration inches closer. I sit up on my leaf mattress, pressing my hands to my temples. My tongue feels like rough sandpaper, and I taste a ghost of last night's shellfish. Despite the queasiness, I throw back the blankets of leaves and push myself outside. The forest at dawn is alive with promise. dew beads on every surface, glinting like suspended diamonds in the soft golden light. I rub my eyes, marveling at the delicate spheres that cling to spiderwebs and broad fronds alike. For the first time since I landed here, hope feels tangible. I whisper my mantra, keep moving, stay alive, and gather my leaf cup and sharpened stick. I crouch beneath a low-hanging palm frond, whose curved edge cradles a line of dewdrops. I tip the leaf into the cup, eyes widening as the clear liquid pools beneath my fingers. The moisture is cool and pure, sliding down my throat in quiet relief. I savor each swallow, feeling the cold wash away the ache of thirst and replace it with a fragile glow of vitality. I scan the surrounding foliage for larger collection sites. A thick patch of bananas calls to me, their yellowing leaves heavy with condensation. I forage beneath the cluster, twisting blades of grass into makeshift funnels that channel dew into a leaf-lined trench I've carved between two stones. With meticulous care, I guide the morning mist into this improvised guttering system. Tiny streams of water trickle into my waiting cup, and I watch with satisfaction as it fills drop by drop. This simple engineering thrills me. It's proof that even without fire or fancy tools, my mind can shape survival. I draft a quick blueprint in the sand beside my shelter, leaves as roofs, grass as pipes, vines as clamps. Each diagram cements the design in my memory for rainy days when I can refine it further. With the dew-gathering system humming quietly, I shift focus to reinforcing the shelter's water catch capabilities. I scale the lean-to's frame, knotting banana leaves at steeper angles to funnel rain toward a collection trough I'll rig tomorrow. My muscles scream in protest, but adrenaline and hope drown out the pain. At the apex, I secure a broad fan leaf with twisted vine, testing its seal with a gentle tug. The structure holds. I descend limbs, shaky but triumphant. Back on the ground, I stir a small fire of thought. Though I cannot create flames, I can engineer a reservoir. I press a shallow depression into damp earth and line it with overlapping fronds, creating a basin that will capture both dew and occasional rain. I draw a circle around it to ward off curious crabs and shellfish, ensuring the water remains uncontaminated. Satisfied for now, I slit a thin strip from my shirt to fashion a headband, keeping sweat from dripping into my eyes as I work. I tuck it under my hat of woven leaves, feeling suddenly like an inventor on the brink of discovery. Next, I direct my energy toward restocking my food supply so I can return to dew harvesting without worry. I trek to the tide pools, alert for limpets and periwinkles. My hands move with practiced precision, pry extract store. The ocean's small gifts fill my cup once more, a reminder that water and food are intertwined in this ecosystem. I nibble a few limpets on the spot, tasting brine and grit, then collect another handful for later meals. By mid-morning, the dew cup is half full and my body feels stabilized. Hydrated blood courses through my veins, easing muscle stiffness and sharpening my mind. I sit by my basin and sip the first harvest, eyes closed, as I relish the cool clarity. A spark of energy lights in my chest. The sun's rays are growing stronger, but I am ready for them now, strengthened by water. I stand and survey my domain, the shelter sturdy behind me, the signal cairn atop the bluff, and the forest around me, whispering possibilities. Tomorrow I'll venture deeper inland to map fresh springs or hidden streams. Today I perfect my engineering. I gather more vines, twisting them into tighter coils for clamping. I hunt for smoother stones to line my basin, preventing frond edges from puncturing the lining. Each improvement feels like a small step toward permanence, a gesture of defiance against the island's indifference. Sweat beads at my brow as the sun climbs. I pause beneath a slender palm, using its trunk as a backrest and drinking from my dew cup until it's empty. The taste lingers on my tongue, clean, sweet relief, and I close my eyes, imagining rain filling my basin in a sudden torrent, the fronds humming with captured drops. It's a dream, but my hands will turn it into reality. As heat peaks, I return to the shelter and tuck my basin in its shade to avoid evaporation. I layer broad leaves over the top to minimize debris, but leave the intake clear. Then I lie back, letting the midday lull settle over me. Hunger tugs at my ribs, but water has tempered its roar. I close my eyes, drifting in that space between action and rest, allowing my body to heal the small scrapes that pepper my arms and legs. In half rest, My mind drifts to rescue a search helicopter, spotting the can, a distant horn from a passing ship. I see myself waving voice hoarse but triumphant as a vessel approaches. The thought warms me more than any fire could. I open my eyes and whisper to the empty forest I will be found. A sudden rustle pulls me from reverie. I sit up, scanning the edge of the clearing. A small group of unfamiliar tracks leads toward the water catch basin, crab claws, or perhaps a curious rodent. I stand, heart hammering, and gently shoo the intruder away with a branch. The basin's water ripples, and I catch the creature's retreat in the underbrush. I let out a relieved breath. This island offers life to more than me, and I must share. Refilling my cup once more, I tally the morning's haul, enough dew for 2 more days if rain doesn't come, plus shellfish that will restock my protein. I sip again, the basin's reflection shimmering in my palm. I tuck the cup into my belt for easy access and stand feeling taller, stronger. I walk back to the shelter, humming a soft tune of accomplishment. Each system I build, each drop I collect, knits together a narrative of ingenuity and grit. The island is no longer a prison. It's a collaborator in my survival. I reach for my walking stick and stride toward the rocky bluff to refresh my can later today, confident that water and shelter now flow as rewards for my perseverance. I pause at the threshold of my hut, glance at the reservoir basin, and touch my chest, where my heart drums with renewed purpose. My story is far from over. There are still nights to endure and storms to weather. But for the first time in days, I feel master of my fate. I rise before sunrise, the chill of dawn still clinging to the air, and head straight for the tide pools. Last night's dew and early water catch have staved off my worst thirst, but my belly still whispers warnings. The horizon glows pale pink as I step over damp sand. Each footfall crackles with dried seaweed. My sharpened stick taps ahead, probing shallow pockets where ocean life huddles until sunrise. A gentle surf rolls in, then retreats, exposing a network of pools etched into black volcanic rock. They shimmer with trapped seawater, glassy surfaces reflecting the awakening sky. I crouch at the largest pool water, no deeper than my palm, and let my fingertips brush the surface, cool and briny. I peer beneath, spotting thin strands of green and crimson seaweed, waving like dancers in a silent ballet. Tiny shrimp dart among them, their translucent bodies catching the pale light. Hunger sharpens my focus. I slide my stick under a wad of seaweed and lift it to the surface. The slender fronds stick together, glistening with moisture. I tear a handful free and pop a strip into my mouth. The flavor is intensely oceanic, salty and slightly sweet, with a trace of mineral grit. It cushions my stomach, a green anodyne that quiets the ache for a moment. Beside the seaweed colony, I discover clusters of barnacles and periwinkles. I press my stick against a rough shell and snap it free with a practiced twist. Dozens of periwinkles scatter across the rock's face, and I scoop them into a leaf cup. Their tiny shells clink like secret coins. I crouch low and crack each shell gently against a jagged edge, extracting the pale, chewy meat inside. It's a texture that takes getting used to, firm and sinewy, but the nutrition floods my limbs with slow warmth and the taste of survival. With a growing pile of seaweed and shellfish at my feet, I pause to survey my surroundings. The sky is streaked with dawn's first light, and seabirds wheel overhead, screeching as they search for fish or carrion. Their cries echo across the tide pools, reminding me that this interdiction between land and sea is a precarious realm, one that I must master to endure. I press a fistful of seaweed into the shellfish remains, wrapping them into a makeshift parcel. There's no fire to transform these morsels, but sunbaking on a flat rock will firm the flesh and reduce moisture, lessening the chance of rapid spoilage. I arrange the parcels in a neat row on the warmed stone and step back. Watching the tide's next rise will dunk them momentarily, an unintended cleansing. While the seaweed-shelled feast bakes, I scour the pool edges for tiny crustaceans. A line of miniature crabs scuttles across a shallow ledge, pincers raised in silent defense. I jostle one gently with my stick and grasp it when it freezes. Its shell is surprisingly firm. I twist and break it quickly, then pinch the tender flesh out. I pop it into my mouth, savoring the saline punch before swallowing. One by one, I harvest dozens, my own low-tide bounty. By mid-morning, the sun has climbed high enough to feel its warmth in my bones. I return to the baking parcels and inspect them. The shellfish meat is opaque now, slightly shrunken, but still supple. I tear open the seaweed wrapping and bite into a mussel, each chew releasing a burst of brine that tingles across my tongue. Grit and tiny rock fragments crunch beneath my teeth, but I grit my jaw and swallow. This meal is a victory raw catch turned into sustenance by patient sun and hunger-driven innovation. I wash down the morsels with dew water from my basin, letting the cool liquid chase away the lingering grit. My stomach settles and a sense of calm spreads through me. Weakness recedes into the background, replaced by the clarity that comes when hunger is answered. Before gathering up my tools and remaining provisions, I sketch the tide pool layout in the sand, shallow, deep, algae-rich, creature-laden, creating a mental map for future forays. I note which pools yielded the best shellfish, which seaweed clung firmest to rocks, and where crabs nested under ledges. This reconnaissance feels strategic, transforming chance encounters into repeatable harvests. Refreshed, I haul my leaf cup of empty shells back to the shelter and sift them out before slipping the empty cup into my belt. I wipe my blade on a leaf, stowing it for later use. Then I return to the tide pools for a quick second sweep, harvesting a handful more seaweed bundles, enough to supplement tomorrow's meals and dry into snack strips. Back at camp, I place my catch atop a flat rock next to the shelter, protected from scavengers by a circle of sharp stones. A breeze stirs the fronds overhead, and I duck beneath my shelter's shade to nibble on a handful of dried seaweed. Its crisp chew reminds me of autumn leaves, but tastes of salt and resilience. Each bite warms my chest, an affirmation that nature's larder, once understood, can sustain even the most stripped-down diet. Between mouthfuls, I scan the ocean for signs of rescue, distant sails, swimmers, drifting debris. The horizon stretches empty, but the stone cairn atop the bluff still stands as my monument. I vow to refresh it today, arranging larger stones to raise its profile. I press a palm to my growing belly, feeling the slow pulse of nourishment. The ache of hunger is replaced by a satisfied hum. I sip dew water once more, letting the sweetness linger. My hands move methodically, collect, harvest, bake, store, each motion an act of defiance against despair. As noon approaches, heat washes over the island like molten silver. I gather the baked parcels into a leaf-lined pouch and stash it under the shelter's shade. I refill my basin with dew-caught water, then sit back against the cool wall, letting the sun's warmth drip from my skin. My body, fueled at last, feels capable of reconquering thirst and cold. I close my eyes and let the rhythm of waves pulse through me. Seaweed and shellfish have become more than food. They're symbols of adaptation. Each tide pool foray is a lesson in ecosystem literacy, a reminder that survival hinges on observation and daring. With each meal, I learn the island's secrets, where life lingers, where danger hides. Tomorrow's tasks stack in my mind: reinforce dew trenches, scout the forest interior for coconuts or berries, adjust the shelter's rain catch. But for now, I rest in the exchange of labor for life, knowing that the ocean's meager bounty can fill me when land offers only sand. I whisper a quiet vow into the afternoon breeze: I will master this place. And with that promise echoing in my bones, I lie back and let the sun's glow warm my exhausted limbs, eyes drifting closed until the tide's next call. First light casts long shadows across the beach as I haul another armful of stones toward the rocky bluff. My muscles protest each lift, but adrenaline sharpens every movement. Today's mission: build a signal that endures wind, tide, and time. Driftwood, scraps, and vines lean against the bluff's jagged face, waiting to become flagpole and framework. I start by clearing a flat patch of ground atop the bluff, brushing away loose sand and coral fragments with my walking stick. The rock surface beneath is smooth, warmed by the sun's early rays, perfect for arranging a foundation. I kneel, hands trembling from yesterday's forays, and place the largest stones in a circle large enough to be seen from above. Each rock clinks like a bell when it joins the ring, a note in a symphony of survival. Once the base is set, I gather thinner, elongated stones to stack in a spiral, gradually narrowing the cairn's diameter as it ascends. It's a meticulous process. A too big rock topples the fragile balance, a too small one disappears into the texture of sand. With every addition, I realign the center, ensuring the structure doesn't lean downhill. My forehead beads with sweat but I wipe the salt away and keep chipping away at the pile. Halfway up, I pause to step back and assess the silhouette against the sky. From the beach below, this mound will appear as a deliberate anomaly, round organized rising far above the natural rock formations. I nod in satisfaction and resume stacking, recalling navigation guide signal features should be at least 3 meters across and high enough to cast a shadow. This cairn will satisfy both criteria if I can reach the summit. As I place the final stone, the tower reaches my waist. It stands firm, its flat surfaces interlocked in silent pact. I step close and pray there are no hidden weaknesses. A gust of wind whooshes off the ocean, testing the cairn's resolve. The stones hold, and I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Next, I fashion a flagpole from a sturdy forked palm branch. I cut off its smaller limbs, leaving a Y-shaped top perfect for securing cloth. The branch is heavy sap, oozing where I cleaved it, but its weight will anchor the flag against strong gusts. I dig a shallow hole atop the cairn, slip the branch's base inside, and wedge stones around it until it stands straight. Each rock pressed into place feels like a vow I will be found. Now, the flag. I retrieve the tattered strip of shirt cloth knotted to my tripod and tie one end to the upper fork of the branch. The fabric is faded, stained with sweat and mud, but its motion in the breeze will carry farther than any solid structure. I knot it tight, then leave a tail long enough to flutter freely. At the tip of the branch, I tuck a piece of bright seaweed I harvested yesterday, its crimson hue, a natural beacon against the pale sky. Stepping back, I watch the cloth snap and twist in the wind, a heartbeat against the horizon. Beneath it, the spiral of stones glints like a compass rose carved into earth. I imagine a helicopter's searchlight sweeping across the beach, catching the flag's movement and the cairn's geometry. I imagine shouts of crew, the roar of engines, the rescue boat slicing through waves. But first, maintenance. I circle the cairn, brushing sand off stones and resetting any that shifted. I scour the bluff for loose gravel. Small pebbles will fill gaps and strengthen weak points. With each fill, the pile becomes more monolithic, less susceptible to erosion. I use my shirt strip as a brush, wiping grit from each stone's face, sweat dripping onto the ground. The feat complete, I climb to the very top of the bluff and glance down at the beach. My shelter is a green speck among palms. The basin glimmers with water. The tide marks glint in the sun. Then my eyes sweep upward the cairn and flags stand proud against the sky, a semaphore reading, "Help." Pride swells in my chest. This signal is permanent until rescue arrives or nature reclaims it. I settle at the bluff's edge, legs dangling over the drop, and sip dew-caught water from my leaf cup. The taste is fresh tang of earth and foliage, but it washes over me like victory. I hold the vessel aloft, letting the sun illuminate each droplet. Despite exhaustion, I feel expansion within, a sense that this island is now scripted by my actions. Suddenly, a flicker at the horizon catches my eye, a dark shape moving against the blue. My heart leaps, muscles tensing as I peer through squinted eyes. It's too small to identify a bird. A boat. I rise, heart pounding, and wave both arms, shouting until my voice cracks. The wind carries my call across the waves. Hello over here. The shape holds its course. My breath catches. I spin back to the cairn, slapping its stones with urgency, then back to the horizon, hoping for a response. Minutes stretch as elongated breath, each second hammering against my resolve. Then a glint, metal reflecting sun, barely perceptible. My pulse thrums like a drum roll, but the object fades, swallowed by distance or cloud. My shout dies on my lips. I stand still, chest heaving, grappling with hope's fragility. Yet the signal remains a monument to possibility. I brush grit from my palms and rub the sweat from my brow. Rescue may still be hours or days away, but I've done my part. I climb down carefully, each step negotiated against loose rocks, and return to the shelter. The day's heat grows relentless, but I feel fortified. Water, shelter, food, and signal all secured. Each element converges toward one goal, finding my way home. I kneel at the entrance of my hut, bow my head in silent thanks for the clarity of purpose, and murmur my mantra. Keep moving. Stay alive. Then I exhale, letting the wind carry my words toward the horizon and beyond. Dawn's mist clings to the beach like a veil as I stir from fitful sleep. Last night's near-rescue flicker and the completed cairn have etched a new determination into my bones. Today I venture deeper into the island's heart to scout for fruit trees or freshwater springs, any resource that might shorten my ordeal. I shoulder my walking stick and step into the forest, the undergrowth damp with dew. Each branch I part releases a sweet, earthy perfume, promise of hidden abundance. I follow a rabbit trail carved between ferns, listening for the burble of water. My pack rests lighter thanks to yesterday's shellfish haul, and my legs, once leaden, now flex with renewed vigor. The forest canopy closes above in a tangle of palms and hardwoods. Sunlight filters in mottled patterns, spotlighting mossy trunks and glistening vines. I pause at a tangle of strangler figs, their air roots snaking toward soil. The fruit's small purplish orbs hangs beyond my reach. I press the sticky sap from a nearby vine into a makeshift rope, but it snaps under my weight. Frustration flickers, then settles into resolve. I'll find fruit elsewhere. A rhythmic drip echoes nearby. I pivot, heart thudding, and push through a thicket of bamboo. Beyond, the ground slopes gently into a shallow ravine. Water beads on stones at its base, trickling in a narrow ribbon that disappears into leaf mold. I drop to my knees and cup the clear stream, drinking it gratefully. It's pure cold, everything I dreamed of since the beach. My throat soaks up each gulp, and I shiver with relief. I refill my leaf cup and collect extra in my basin. This spring, if I can call it that, will be my daily lifeline. I mark the spot by stacking a small pile of rocks, just enough to guide me back. The forest seems to pulse with life around me. Frogs call in hidden pools and dragonflies skim the water's surface. Revived, I push deeper, uphill, scanning for edible flora. I move toward a stand of coconut palms clustered on a raised knoll. Their long trunks lean at angles, above heavy nuts sway in the breeze. I crouch and inspect the fallen fronds at the base. Old husks crack open, exposing shredded fibers. Using my sharpened stick, I split a husk and pull free a thick strand. I twist several together into a lanyard strong enough to help me climb. Heart racing, I grasp the lowest frond and use the lashings to hoist myself onto a support. Inch by inch, I shimmy upward, each pull burning my arms. Leaves scrape my forearms, but thrill overrides pain. At last, my fingers curl around a ripe coconut. I twist it free, and it thuds against a thick palm trunk, splitting open and raining milky water onto the forest floor. I catch the stream in my cup and gag as sweetness floods my senses. Then I use the husk's edge to crack it further, exposing its flesh. I scrape chunks with my stick and feed them to my starving belly. The creamy meat is rich, oily, perfect. This is the feast I dreamed of, nature's bounty discovered through persistence. With renewed strength, I gather 2 more coconuts, secure them in vines slung across my shoulders, and head back toward the spring. The path is steeper on the return, but the weight feels lighter, buoyed by hope. I pause at the water's edge to rinse coconut milk from my hands and fill my basin. I walk beachward, marking trees with notches so I won't lose my way. Each notch anchors me, proof that I can traverse and map this island. Emerging into sunlight, I feel the full warmth on my back, invigorating rather than oppressive. My shelter and signaling cairn await, but this inland survey has yielded water and food in abundance. Back at camp, I unload my bounty: 3 coconuts, a full basin of spring water, and a mind buzzing with maps and plans. I reinforce the dew traps and adjust my troughs to channel extra water into deeper containers. Then I crack open a coconut, drink deeply, and snack on its meat, savoring every bite. As the sun tilts westward, I test the spring's flow, once more refilling my basin. Twice a day, I vow I'll visit it, ensure the pile of stones stays intact and the flow remains clear. This freshwater source transforms my survival equation. No more sand grit puddles, no more desperate dew hunts. I settle by my shelter, belly full and spirit buoyed. The island's raw challenges, hunger, thirst, exposure, have given way to rhythm and purpose. A daily routine emerges: gather water at dawn, forage protein at low tide, scout resources inland, maintain shelter and signal. I watch waves roll onto the beach, their relentless rhythm matching my own heartbeat. I whisper to the empty forest, I belong here now. And though rescue remains the goal, I know I've grown more than I feared possible. Dawn's first light paints the sky in blush tones as I awake to another day of meticulous survival. My strategy has inching forward from chaos to routine freshwater spring, tide pool foraging, inland scouting, and now I focus on fortifying my signal. The cairn and flag stand bravely atop the bluff, but time and tide will erode their edges. Today, I'll build a secondary marker on the opposite headland to double my chances. I sling my walking stick over my shoulder and head east along the shoreline. The sand is cool beneath my feet, and the ocean breeze carries the tang of salt and seaweed. Each step takes me closer to the rocky promontory that juts like a sentinel into the surf. I navigate around tide pools shimmering with early light, noting promising clusters of shellfish for tomorrow's meal. Further along, seabirds wheel their cries directing me to hidden coves and rock ledges. At the promontory's base, I find a natural plateau, flat stone warmed by the sun's first rays, a perfect platform for a marker. I haul stones from the beach, each one chosen for flatness and durability. As I build, I remember geometry, straight lines, and clear shapes catch the eye from above better than irregular piles. I arrange the rocks in a giant arrow pointing inland, its head directed toward my shelter. The arrow spans nearly 10 meters, with each shaft line 2 meters wide, visible even from high altitude. Sweat beads on my brow as I position the final stones, adjusting angles for symmetry. I step back and gauge the arrow's perspective, true and sharp, its lines cutting a clear path toward my camp. I press a palm to my chest, feeling the pride of this deliberate sign. Rescue planes or helicopters scanning the coastline will see the arrow first, then the cairn as confirmation. Redundancy here means survival. Next, I collect driftwood and seaweed to enhance the marker's visibility. I lash thin logs along the arrow's edges, using vine rope to prevent shifting. The wood's pale color contrasts with dark rock. Seaweed's deep green adds texture and height. With each lash, I reinforce the arrow's outline, creating a layered message etched into nature itself. A sudden scrap of movement catches my eye, crab tracks weaving across the arrow. I kneel and gently smooth them away, ensuring the path remains clear. Even the smallest details matter. I trace my finger along the driftwood border, pressing it firmly into the sand below so wind won't blow it away. Morning advances and the sun climbs higher. I pause to rest atop the plateau, gazing out to sea. The horizon is empty but hopeful. The rhythmic pulse of waves is a metronome encouraging perseverance. I sip spring water from my basin, feeling it steady my breath. My gaze drops to the arrow, a testament to intent and action. Before returning, I gather more stones, smaller ones to fill gaps and shore up weak spots. I crouch at the arrow's tip and wedge each pebble into tight crevices, locking the driftwood logs in place. The arrow's lines deepen its form, more pronounced. I step back once again, satisfaction blooming as the sun illuminates the symbol's silhouette. With the secondary marker complete, I set off back toward my shelter, timing my return to coincide with low tide. Along the way, I stop at tide pools for a swift harvest, periwinkles and limpets to tide me over until evening. The familiar rhythm comforts me, forage, build, maintain. Emerging from the forest edge, I catch sight of the cairn atop the opposite bluff and the freshly minted arrow below. The two signals frame my domain like beacons awaiting discovery. I stand between them, casting my eyes from stone to stone, arrow to cairn, and feel a surging harmony between human determination and natural landscape. As I near the shelter, the midday heat thickens. I duck inside and wipe sweat from my forehead. My focus shifts to restocking provisions, sealing some coconuts in a shaded nook for later, and stashing shellfish in a protected crevice. I reinforce the dew collection basin with more leaves and knots, ensuring no seepage. Before settling, I ascend the bluff once more to refresh the cairn. Each stone feels familiar in my hands as I reset shifted rocks and straighten the flagpole. I replace the crimson seaweed tail that had frayed in the wind, knotting a fresh strip to the fork's top. The flag snaps fiercely in the breeze, vibrant against the sky. Back at camp, I squat by the basin and drink deeply. My body hums with energy from water and sustenance. I unroll a bundle of baked shellfish parcels and nibble one, its taste of sun and sea, reminding me of the interplay between patience and reward. Late afternoon finds me mapping tomorrow's exploration, a dive inland toward a rocky ridge where birds roost, another possible water source. The outline forms in my mind, drawn by the landmarks I've engraved into both memory and the island itself. I cap my sharpened stick and lean it against the shelter's frame. My eyes scan the signals one last time, arrow cairn flag, symbols of hope etched into earth and stone. I sink onto my bedding limbs, heavy but spirit buoyed. Night will come, soon cold and dark, but I am ready. The island has become my partner in survival, and I, its determined inhabitant. I murmur my mantra into the gathering dusk. Keep moving, stay alive. And as the sun slips below the horizon, I close my eyes, comforted by the certainty that my signals lay waiting, shining silent beacons against the vast expanse. The sun's angle shifts, casting long, golden fingers through the banana leaf blinds as I wake to a new day. My muscles ache from yesterday's dual marker construction, but today's challenge is within mind over matter. Hunger, thirst, cold fear, each has tested me. But now the battlefield is my own thoughts. I step outside and inhale the humid air, tasting salt and earth. My morning dew basin awaits its shallow pool, glimmering with last night's collection. I scoop a handful and drink deeply, letting the cool clarity wash away grogginess. Each swallow is an affirmation I'm still here, still capable. I pace the shoreline to steady my nerves. Foam flecks scrawl patterns along the sand like messages in code. My mind flickers to doubts. What if rescue never arrives? What if my body fails before help comes? I stop and place a palm on the wavering letters, grounding myself to the earth. No, I whisper. I choose to endure. I return to my shelter and pull out the walking stick, an extension of my will. I lean against it as I plan the day's tasks, but my vision twitches with the memory of last night's hallucinations. Mangoes dissolving into air, phantom coconuts dangling just out of reach. I shake my head, dispelling mirages. The island is real, and so are my victories. My first exercise, a mental drill. I sit cross-legged on my leaf bed, close my eyes and focus on breath. Inhale, count to 4, exhale, count to 6. Thoughts intrude, memories of home, fears of isolation, but I guide my awareness back to the rhythm. Each breath is a tether, anchoring me to the present. As my mind clears, I stand and set out to reinforce my physical and mental boundaries. I trek to the tide pools where yesterday's shellfish bounty taught me about risk and reward. Today, I'll forage only limpets and seaweed, low stakes that won't poison me. I harvest a cupful of limpets, tasting each as a controlled gamble against fear. With each bite, I whisper affirmations: strong, focused, unbroken. Back at camp, I arrange the limpets on a flat stone to sunbake, then move to reinforce my shelter. I examine the woven roof, tightening vines and replacing fronds that slipped loose. Each adjustment is a victory against entropy, a testament to persistence. I finish and step back, surveying the hut's sturdy form. I pat the frame as if shaking hands with a comrade in arms. A storm cloud drifts overhead, a rare sight in these weeks of unbroken sun. I look up, heartbeat quickening. Rain could replenish my basin, but also collapse fragile walls. I steel myself and head for the forest with reinforced rope and spare fronds, gathering backup materials. My arms burn as I cut palm leaves and strip vines. No storm will surprise me twice. As the clouds darken, I pause and feel a thrill, anticipation of adversity, sharpening my resolve. I build a secondary lean-to deeper in the forest, a rain shelter that will keep me dry if the main hut fails. Each frond I weave is a stitch in the armor, protecting my body and mind from collapse under challenges. Rain begins in hesitant drips, then crescendos into a steady drone. I watch from beneath the banana leaf blinds as droplets drum on the canopy. The forest floor steams, and my two shelters, one on the beach, one inland, stand firm. A surge of pride warms me more than any cup of dew. But the storm's roar awakens old fears, thunder that mimics the rumble of my heartbeat, wind that rattles the fronds like skeletal fingers. I grip my walking stick and huddle in my beach shelter, eyes wide. Stay calm, I murmur. Voice cracking, I recite the mantra, but words feel thin against the storm's volume. I rise, striding into the downpour to check the signal cairn. Rain slicks the flagpole and stones, but they hold firm, an anchoring truth in chaos. I pat each rock, feeling their solidity beneath my palms. Then I dash back to shelter, heart pounding, and sit cross-legged, closing my eyes against the pelting rain. I return to my breathing drill. Inhale for 4, exhale for 6. Thoughts barrage me. Could the storm mask an approaching ship? Will waves erode my camp? I envision the future, calm waters, rescue boats, my return home. I hold that vision steady, a north star guiding me through mental tempest. When the rain finally wanes, I step outside. Mist curls off leaves and the island sighs. I breathe deeply, tasting rain-laced air. My body is chilled, but my spirit soars. I return to my shelters, collecting stray fronds and resetting rocks displaced by water. Each action reaffirms I control my fate through thought and deed. The storm's passage leaves the island renewed. Leaves glisten, birds emerge, and my water reserves brim. I fill my basin and cup, savoring the purest water I've ever tasted. It's a reward for mental endurance as much as physical. As midday sun returns, I sit at the shelter's threshold and watch waves reclaim the shore. In that moment, I know I've mastered both the island's trials and the darker caverns of my mind. No hallucination, no fear, no doubt can derail me. I am resolute. I rise and whisper my mantra one last time: keep moving, stay alive. Dusk deepens the sky into bruised purples and inky blues as I sit atop the bluff gazing out at the horizon. My heart beats a frantic rhythm, echoing the crash of waves far below. Today marks 72 hours since I washed ashore, and every sinew in my body hums with anticipation. I clutch my walking stick like a talisman, scanning the vast expanse for any sign of movement. A distant roar ripples across the water, mechanical, rhythmic, unlike the ebb and flow of surf. My breath catches. I rise, legs trembling, and wave both arms, flagging the signal cairn I built so carefully. The tattered strip of cloth snaps in the wind above me, and the spiral of stones glints in the fading light. I shout, voice ragged but fierce, "Over here, help!" The sound grows louder, and suddenly a beam of light sweeps across the sea, bright and narrow, cutting a path toward me. My pulse leaps. I dash down the rocky slope, barefoot and bleeding teeth, gritted against the sting of small cuts. Salt air burns my lungs with each breath, but I don't slow. Every step is carried by hope and relief. Closer now, I make out the silhouette of a helicopter, its rotors churning the air into a tempest of spray and sand. I shield my eyes, squinting as it descends onto the beach below. Sand whips around me in a whirlwind of white grit and ocean mist. I crouch low, hugging the bluff's edge, afraid the rotor wash will knock me off my feet. The chopper settles onto the sand with a thunderous thud, its blades still slicing the air. A rescue team spills out dark figures against the pastel sky. I leap from the bluff's lip and sprint across the beach, stumbling through seaweed and driftwood, leaving footprints that blur with the incoming tide. My voice cracks as I cry, "I'm here, I'm here." One of the rescuers breaks away, running toward me with arms outstretched. I collapse into their embrace, sobs racking my shoulders. The rigid discipline of survival cracks into raw emotion, relief, gratitude and shock all mingling into tears. Their uniform smells of antiseptic and oil. They guide me gently toward the helicopter's open door. Inside, warmth and light flood my senses. A medic wraps a blanket around my shoulders and presses a water bottle into my hands. The cool plastic feels miraculous. I drink greedily, letting liquid warmth quell the parched hollowness in my chest. A gentle voice murmurs questions my name, my condition, but I can't speak. My lips tremble into a whispered thank you. They strap me onto a stretcher and lift me inside. The helicopter tilts, and I feel a sudden weightlessness. Through the doorway, the island shrinks my sanctuary, my battleground, into a patchwork of green and gold. I press a hand against my forehead, touching the sweat and grit that marked my survival. The rotor noise recedes behind me, replaced by the steady hum of the engine and soft voices offering blankets and warm tea. I close my eyes, exhaustion and emotion pooling together. In this suspension between earth and sky, I let memory drift over the past 3 days. The sting of salt and sun, the taste of raw shellfish, the thrill of captured dew, the agony of cold nights, and the soaring triumph of each small victory. Above the clouds, the pilot banks gently, and I catch a glimpse of a sprawling coastline far beyond the world I left behind. I whisper to no one in particular, I made it. My voice is hoarse but unwavering. A calm washes over me as the cabin's warmth seeps into my bones. The rescuers' practiced movements carry me forward out of isolation into safety. The helicopter tilts once more, descending toward a waiting ship at sea. I feel the deck tilt beneath my stretcher and hear the murmur of a crew ready to help. With each passing second, the raw terror of solitude loosens its grip. In its place blooms gratitude for knowledge, resilience, and the unwavering hope that carried me here. As medics check vital signs and prepared to ferry me home, I focus on that beam of light that guided the helicopter, that spiral of stones that drew attention, that ragged cloth that refused to surrender. The world beyond this remote island awaits. But for now, I savor the warmth of human hands and the promise of rescue. My story of survival and the island's harsh lessons will follow me home, etched into memory, like the spirals of that signal cairn. The helicopter's roar fades into a gentle hum as I lie swaddled in warmth. The blanket's soft fibers, a stark contrast to the roughness of my makeshift shelter. My body relaxes, muscles unclenching as the adrenaline dissipates. Every inhale and exhale feels unhurried, as though time itself has slowed to cradle me. Waves once deafening now pulse far below in a distant lullaby, and the scent of salt is softened by the antiseptic and tea that fill the cabin. I let my thoughts drift untethered by fear or necessity. I recall the first taste of dew on banana leaves at dawn, the sting of cold earth beneath the woven fronds, and the triumphant glint of each sun-baked shellfish parcel. Those moments of trial and triumph have sculpted me into someone who knows both the fragility and strength of life. Warm light filters through the helicopter's window, casting a golden glow on my closed eyelids. I feel the gentle sway of the aircraft and imagine I'm back in the hammock beneath tropical palms, only now there's comfort and safety woven into every movement. My mind softens, releasing the tension that held me taut for days. I think of home and all the faces I'll see, friends whose laughter will fill the air, family whose embrace will warm my soul. The taste of simple meals, the comfort of a fire's glow, the luxury of a cool shower, all await me. Yet I also carry the island with me, its lessons of resourcefulness, its raw beauty, its unyielding demands. As the helicopter carries me toward rescue, I whisper a final mantra, not of survival, but of gratitude. Thank you. Thank you for strength, for every small victory, and for the life that continues beyond isolation.